A car so intimidating that cops had to buy it just to keep up with criminals driving it. The Charger is a cultural statement on four wheels. From the 60s muscle to today's electric shift, it's evolved, survived chaos, and stayed on top. Let's break down every era, what changed, what didn't, and why it matters. If you love cars with real history behind them, hit subscribe right now. We do this every week. First generation, 1966 to 1967. It started with disappointment. The 1966 Charger looked stunning. That sleek fastback roofline, the full-width taillight, the hidden headlights. It genuinely turned heads. But underneath all that style, it had a serious problem. The interior was more show than substance. The four bucket seats and center console looked sharp in photos, but the rear seats were practically useless for actual passengers. Sales were decent, about 37,000 units. But Dodge knew they could do better. The engines were strong, though. The standard 318 cubic inch V8 gave you a respectable start, and if you optioned up to the 426 Hemi, the same engine that won NASCAR races, you had something genuinely terrifying on the street. But the first generation was really just Dodge finding its footing, a beautiful prototype of what was coming. Now things get serious. Second generation, 1968 to 1970. This is where the Charger became the Charger. The 1968 redesign fixed everything the first generation got wrong. The body got a deep Coke bottle curve, a recessed grille that looked almost aggressive at a standstill, and a roofline so clean it still looks modern today. This was the car that Steve McQueen's Mustang chased through San Francisco in Bullitt. The bad guy drove the Charger. And honestly, most people thought the Charger won that chase. The 1969 Charger 500 and the Wild Wing Charger Daytona came next, both built specifically to dominate NASCAR superspeedways. The Daytona's nose cone and 23-inch rear wing weren't cosmetic. They were functional aerodynamics that pushed the car to over 200 miles per hour on the track. In street trim, it looked like something from another decade entirely. The 1970 Charger carried the same bones with some refinements and remains one of the most visually perfect muscle cars ever built. Clean, wide, aggressive, without trying too hard. Sales hit over 46,000 units in 1969 alone. The Charger was a genuine cultural phenomenon. Then the world changed, and the Charger struggled to keep up. Third generation, 1971 to 1974. The early 70s hit American muscle hard. Insurance companies started penalizing high-performance cars. The Clean Air Act tightened emission standards, and the 1973 oil crisis made big V8s feel irresponsible overnight. Dodge responded by softening the Charger, literally. The 1971 redesign made it wider, heavier, and more of a personal luxury car than a raw performance machine. It wasn't all bad. The styling was still bold, and the SE trim brought genuine comfort features that buyers actually wanted. But compression ratios dropped, horsepower numbers fell off a cliff, and the Charger was slowly becoming something it was never supposed to be, a comfortable cruiser with a muscle car badge. By 1974, the writing was on the wall. What happened next is genuinely strange. Fourth generation, 1975 to 1978, Dodge took the Charger name and put it on a smaller, lighter, Cordoba-based coupe. It was a reasonable car for the time, tidy styling, manageable fuel consumption, but it wasn't a Charger in any meaningful sense. The 318 V8 stuck around, but performance wasn't the point anymore. Survival was. Sales were actually decent, which says more about the Charger's name recognition than anything else. People trusted the badge even when the car behind it didn't earn it. By 1978, Dodge quietly discontinued the nameplate. No big announcement, no farewell edition. It just stopped, it came back, and it was even more confused. Fifth generation, 1982 to 1987. The 1982 Charger was a front-wheel drive hatchback built on a Simca platform. Let that sink in. The car that broke 200 miles per hour at Daytona now shares its bones with a European economy car. It had a 2.2-liter four-cylinder engine. It weighed barely over 2,000 pounds. To be fair, it was actually quick for its displacement, and the turbocharged version produced a surprising 146 horsepower. But calling it a Charger felt like a stretch. This era felt like Dodge was borrowing a legendary name to sell an ordinary car. Enthusiasts weren't fooled. By 1987, the nameplate disappeared again. Twice canceled. Most cars don't get a second chance. The Charger was about to get a third. Fast forward 16 years. Dodge finally got it right. Sixth generation, 2006 to 2023. The 2006 Charger brought something nobody expected, a four-door muscle car. Purists grumbled, but the formula worked. Built on a rear-wheel drive platform shared with the Chrysler 300, the new Charger was wide, heavy, and deliberately old school in its approach. It looked like a modern interpretation of the 1968 original, with wide haunches, an aggressive front end, and a silhouette that read as muscle car from half a mile away. The 5.7-liter Hemi Phi 8 returned in 2006, and the supercharged 6.2-liter Hellcat arrived in 2015 with 707 horsepower. That number felt absurd at the time. Then came the Hellcat Red Eye in 2019 with 797 horsepower, and the Jailbreak Edition in 2022, pushing 807. Dodge wasn't chasing trends. They were doubling down on everything that made American muscle irrational and lovable. The wide-body package, launched in 2018, gave the Charger flared fenders and massive 305-width rear tires. It looked properly menacing. The Superstock in 2021 ran the quarter mile in the low 10-second range straight from the factory, a street-legal car faster than most dedicated drag machines from 20 years earlier. This generation ran for 17 years. Think about that. In an industry where platforms get replaced every 5 to 7 years, the Charger's sixth generation outlasted trends, recessions, and a global pandemic. It sold consistently because it delivered something increasingly rare, a real driver's car that didn't apologize for burning fuel. And then Dodge made the decision that divided everyone. Seventh generation, 2024 onwards. The 2024 Charger Daytona is electric, and also, confusingly, available with a turbocharged inline-six. Dodge called the electric version the Charger Daytona EV and gave it a synthetic exhaust sound system called Fratsonic Chambered Exhaust, engineered to produce a distinctive roar even without combustion. The electric version produces up to 670 horsepower in its highest Scat Pack trim. The design is genuinely striking. Wide, low, and aggressive, with a front end that references the original 1969 Daytona's proportions. The interior is modern and driver-focused, and the performance numbers are legitimate, 0 to 60 in under 3.5 seconds with the electric drivetrain. But here's the thing. Dodge understood better than most. The Charger's audience isn't buying it purely for performance stats. They're buying it for the feeling, the sound, the excess, the theatrics, which is why Dodge kept the six-cylinder gas option alive alongside the electric, a 550 horsepower twin-turbocharged Hurricane engine that keeps some combustion drama in the lineup. Whether the synthetic exhaust satisfies longtime HEMI loyalists is a debate still playing out. But as an engineering achievement and a design statement, the 2024 Charger is more interesting than anyone expected. Here's what the full timeline actually shows. The Charger has been discontinued twice, diluted twice, and resurrected twice. Every single time it came back, someone at Dodge made a decision that looked risky, and it paid off. The 2006 four-door gamble saved the nameplate. The Hellcat insanity made it culturally relevant again. The 2024 electric pivot is the biggest bet yet. There's something genuinely moving about a car that refuses to stay dead. The Charger has survived eras that killed dozens of stronger nameplates. It has a stubborn identity that keeps reasserting itself no matter how the market shifts. Nearly 60 years, 7 generations, 2 cancellations and 2 comebacks. The Dodge Charger has never been the most refined car on the road, and that's exactly the point. It was built to be felt, not just driven. Whatever the next chapter looks like, one thing is clear. This car isn't going quietly. Drop a comment telling me which generation is your favorite, and if you're new here, Subscribe because we cover the full stories that car channels skip.